But if
Yes.
you do things that are tough, but are right, the things that show character, then it might take a while for you to see the patterns, but eventually it produces the right results. So I've always been a big believer that long-term orientation is so important.
And over time, if you look at the sort of work that your company does, how has that evolved? I know, for example, you're now very much involved in business coaching and so on. How has the business evolved in the last 20 years or so? And what is it that you do now compared to what, let's say, how you started?
It's interesting. I go back to our very first offerings and what we put on the website in 2003,
Hmm.
and they don't look that different. You
Okay.
can see work around leadership development, organizational design, strategic planning, culture change. So the names of the services hasn't changed at all. But my goodness, in other ways, they've changed immensely. The
Yes.
work that we do in leadership development is now far more focused on moving mindsets rather than just building skills. It's far deeper in terms of its impact. Um, the extent to which, of course, we use technology has massively changed over that time. And of course, the context has changed. If you think about the work that we're doing today, it has to consider the impact of things such as AI, um, global, political instability,
Yes.
makeup of the workforce, energy transition. There are so many different factors, and because of all of those factors, it makes the solutions different as well. So I find that really interesting. It's a bit like saying, has there always been transportation to get you from one place to another? Well, yes, there has, but there's a big difference between your feet and a horse and cart and a motor car and a jet, right? So I feel the same about our services.
Yes, I'm going to delve into AI in a minute, but I know since your company does a lot of work in the leadership space, I just want to bounce a couple of things off you and see what your thoughts are. So I've half of my life, professional life, has been spent in Australia. The last so many years in Pakistan, and we do a lot of work on leadership development. But we used to find that most of the leadership theories that were being promoted, even in developing countries like Pakistan, in the Middle East, where I've done a lot of work, were all Western-based theories, right? Everyone was talking about Jack Welch, or more recently about Simon Sinek, and I felt that you can't sort of take the Western theories on leadership, motivation, and copy and paste them in an Eastern or an Asian context. And did quite a lot of work and found that, one of my theories is that Jack Welch would never have succeeded in Pakistan because it
Mm.
would have been such a shock, cultural
Mm.
shock to him to work in an environment which is more unpredictable, less certain, and so on. Do you think the Western theories around leadership and everything can easily be adapted to Asian economies or Middle Eastern economies?
Yeah, it's a really good point you make. Look, I think I'm going to say a little bit of yes and a little bit of no.
Okay.
I always remember I originally come from New Zealand, which has always had employment legislation that's very employee focused.
Yes.
It really to protect the rights of the individual. And I was doing my postgraduate program at Cornell University in New York, and of course, 95% of the people there were from the US,
Yeah.
and we would talk about different things to do, and they would say, well, of course I'd just fire those people and I'd do this and all of these things. I was like, you can't actually do that in New Zealand, and so it was just so funny, like that they couldn't understand what I was talking about, and I couldn't understand what they were talking about. And then I remember running a leadership program, to your point, that was piloted with an Australian and New Zealand audience before going right around Asia,
Hmm.
um, and and the pilot went really well, and so I didn't think there would be much change required. But of course, the moment you suddenly had people from Japan, the Philippines, India, Thailand, etc., all in the room, I very rapidly recognized that some things had to change. Not necessarily in terms of the theories, but certainly in terms of what the learning model looked like.
Yes.
And the some of those things you have to be careful not to stereotype, but there are definitely some tendencies in different cultures that do shift things. And more recently, I've been doing some work with a global executive team, a very large global FMCG company,
Hmm.
and they are US centered in terms of the headquarters, but there's also a very strong Japanese component.
Oh, I
And a
see.
lot of the theory on top team effectiveness suggests that you need a lot of positive conflict. You want people really debating issues. And so that's been really interesting to look at.